Hi, Gary here again, and in this video I want to talk about how the examiner versus the pupil in a test situation, because a lot of people might be working on training licence, and with a training licence you get used to your pupils and what your pupils can and can't do, and you base your instruction around that, which is totally correct, but in a test situation that might not work. So I just want you to fully understand how an examiner works and how it differs from a pupil and how you might need to alter your instruction accordingly. So we'll go through the slideshow. How are they different? Okay, well, the examiner is going to be your best pupil because they'll develop quicker with correct instruction than a pupil would, and they'll be very consistent with that development. So if you've given them the right instructions, and they will follow it, and they will be consistent with that. They won't go back to doing something wrong if they've done it right for you. They'll also be your worst pupil, and this means that they won't develop unless you give good instructions. They'll ask questions to test your knowledge, and they'll be argumentative sometimes and confrontational, which most pupils wouldn't tend to do. You do get one or two, but most pupils just follow what you tell them and they'll take it as gospel, whereas an examiner is going to question all of that. So at the same time, they're going to be your best pupil and your worst pupil. That's an advantage really, because if you're giving correct instructions, you'll find it's a lot easier to teach the pupil, because they are more consistent. Consistency is the key to it really. So we'll look at the difference now with the pupils. A pupil, your best pupil, will develop without needing instruction. And this is where you can find problems in part 3, because if you don't give instruction, the examiner won't develop, and it's going to be really tough. So don't expect things to happen without instruction. Some pupils, you can tell them what to do and they will do it. An examiner won't do it like that. They will expect the instruction to go with it. Your worst pupils are going to be inconsistent, which if you are working on training licence you'll know all about that. You can get them to do something once, twice, 3 times, and then they go back to not being able to do it again, and from one week to the next they're very, very inconsistent. They'll be forgetful, and they'll have poor coordination skills. Examiners don't do that. They'll be consistent with the development. If they've done it right for you, they'll continue to do it right, and they will remember things, and their coordination is going to be a lot better. So how do you deal with the first phase? You would prioritise the subject. That's very important, because again, with a pupil you'd be dealing with lots and lots of different things. You might be teaching one subject, but you'll still be controlling everything else, and you'll probably have to do an awful lot of work on other things as well. Whereas in the test you need to prioritise the subject. That is the only thing that the examiner can mark you on. So you know, at all costs, make sure that subject is covered properly. You still need to cover or keep control of other aspects of the driving. So it's no use if you were going to teach, let's say, a turn in the road, expecting that from the test centre to the site that you were going to do the turn in the road, that you would just be able to give directions and no instruction. Because the examiner would look at it from the point of view that if they were a real pupil, they wouldn't have managed that drive without the help. So you still need to keep control of everything else, and the way to do that is to find out what they've done before, and if they've done it, you can prompt it. If they've not done it, you'd have to guide them through it. So let's say, for example, on that drive to the site that you were going to do turn in the road, you came across a roundabout, and you didn't know whether they'd done roundabouts or not. So just ask the pupil on approach, have you dealt with roundabouts? If they say yes, then you can prompt it. If they say no, just guide them through it. You're not teaching that on that day. Just guide them through it, get them through it, and don't talk about it afterwards. Just carry on. Give lots of help at a guided level during the first few attempts of whatever the subject is. This is important to, again, if you don't start off with a lot of help, a lot of instruction at the beginning, you'll find there'll be a lot of faults that you've got to deal with that have been caused by your lack of instruction. And so you end up giving more help at the end than you do at the beginning. And really we should give a lot of help at the beginning and less at the end, which is what you've stated in your objective, hopefully. Only move on to prompted when the pupil can do something at a guided level. A lot of people think that it's a time thing, like 5 minutes on guided and 5 minutes on prompted, but it isn't. You've got to decide when you can move from guided to prompted, depending on the pupil's ability. So if they still can't do something at a guided level, don't go off guided, just keep guiding them until they can do it. If they can do it guided, then you can prompt that aspect of it. Pull up to deal with faults. That's important as well, because if you try and fix the faults on the move on a first phase, you will lose control of the lesson again. So if you see a fault that needs developing and dealing with, pull up, talk about it, make a plan of what you're going to do, and then be in control again with your level of instruction as you set off to prevent that fault from happening again. Use positive and proactive instruction to prevent faults. I have done a video on that, so you could look that one up. But that again is very important on first phase, because you need to prevent faults with your instruction and only have to deal then with the faults that the examiner's thrown in that you perhaps couldn't have prevented, so that you're not dealing with faults constantly. You're trying to prevent them by giving them positive and proactive instruction. Second phase, we're going to prioritise the subject again. Use questions this time. The pupil should know about the subject. They should have been taught it. So it's your job to find out, do they know about it, and do they know all the relevant aspects of it. Avoid over-instruction. A lot of people get worried about over-instruction, both on first and second phase, and I will cover a specific topic for over-instruction on a different video. But over-instruction here is just basically you don't really want to be telling them to do things that they're already doing, or helping them too much. Let's say, for example, to spot the hazard, you would ask them to spot it rather than you spotting it for them. So I will cover that in a lot more detail in another video. Make the pupil work for you. So make the pupil work harder than you're working, in a sense. On the first phase, you've had to work an awful lot. You've had to give lots and lots of instruction, lots of help. Pupil's not really said very much. They've just been driving and following your instruction. On this phase, you want to make the pupil work for you. So you want them to be talking back to you and answering the questions. So ask a lot of questions. Make them plan what they're going to do and tell you what they're going to do. Basically, try and get them to do a commentary, if you can, of what they're seeing and why it's a problem and how they're going to deal with it. Again, going back to the first element, prioritise the subject. So whatever the subject is, that's the thing that you need to talk about the most. Analyse the faults. Check knowledge and understanding. So if you see a fault, make sure the pupil not only knows what they should have done, but they understand why they should have done it. That's very important, and it's something that a lot of people forget to do. So it's easy to say to the pupil, well, do you know what you should have done there? And they'll say, yeah, I should have done this, that or the other. But if you don't check that they understand why to do it, they're not going to develop, and you'll see that fault occur again. Pull up if necessary. Again, this is a point that a lot of people get confused on. They think they can't pull up on a second phase. Well, you can. It's just that you wouldn't be pulling up as much as you would on a first phase. And you'd only pull up if you needed to maybe to show a diagram or have a lengthy discussion about something, or you were going to lose control if you kept on driving. So pull up if you need to do. Don't be afraid of pulling up. Give guidance if needed, and that's something else that people think that they can't do because they think it's over-instruction. If the pupil needs it, you need to give it. So don't be afraid of giving guidance. If you see something that's habitual, some problem that a pupil's got that they are doing constantly and it's not getting any better, then go back to guidance to help them to get it better if you need to. And again, I'll cover more on that aspect of it in a different video. So back to the motto again. 20 letters, 10 words, 1 meaning. If it is to be, it is up to me. So prepare to pass. I hope that's helped. Thanks for listening.